where did our democracy come from? It came from our political philosophers. It came after the French Revolution, it came after the American Revolution, and it came after the Confederation of this country. So we should not be going back in that time. We should be continuing to move forward. Now, the political philosopher, Jürgen Habermas, German political philosopher, he said that political decisions are legitimate to the extent that they can be justified. Then John Rawls, another famous political philosopher, he said, a society is well ordered when its members all have a sense of justice and fairness. Both Habermas and Rawls argue that justification carries motivational force. Without justification, it may be difficult to keep the idea of political order going. Throughout history, every time a government has tried to use division and fear to convince its citizens to surrender their rights, they have had to face people of principle. People who have stood up and fought back. People like each and every one of you here today. Friends, this is your time. This is our moment to show that we will not allow anyone to use terror to make us change our way of life.
Yes! Yes!
It's important to acknowledge that even the Globe and Mail and others have even gone as far as calling the terror threat in this country exaggerated.
Yes.
And we should not allow anyone to use fear and make us give up our rights either. We've heard this language before. Remember, you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. You remember? Where did that get us? Okay? Well, I'm proud to be with you. I'm proud to be with you because never have we faced a government so cynical in their attempt to stoke fear and hysteria, a government so reckless with our rights and freedoms, a government, and unfortunately, the lineage of one of our great leader and father of the Canadian Charter is following right along. I said to him, don't play politics with our cherished rights and freedom. That's why this is a defining moment for all Canadians and our political leaders. It is these very rights and freedoms that made our Canada strong, free, safe, and united with so many cultures and nationalities living under one roof. It is these rights and freedoms that motivate us to defend and stand on guard for this nation. These rights and freedoms respect dignity, humanity, and are the bedrock of a civilized society, and these rights are our greatest asset in the fight against extremism. Abuse in government's interrogation tactics have become part of the post-9/11 era, and we must be on guard to ensure that this does not land in Canada through Bill C-51. It's time for our political leaders to show who they are and stand for what they and are what they stand for, to show if they have courage of their convictions. I stand firmly against this bill. But more importantly, so does the Privacy Commissioner of Canada. He argues this bill would fail to provide Canadians with what they want and expect, and that is legislation that protects both their safety and their privacy. So do former Prime Ministers, Supreme Court Justices, Justice Ministers, Premiers, and just about every national and international and trans-border expert in the field is opposed to this bill. Amnesty International says that C-51 is the worst setback for human rights in Canada's modern history. Did you ever imagine a day would come when Amnesty International would rebuke Canada for human rights setback?
Ooh, shame!
Actually, I'm surprised it took that long.
This is not Robert Mugabe's Africa. This is Canada. And it's also interesting. And it's also interesting that Amnesty International would make that distinction between Canada's modern history, because it says something. We have a past that we're not proud of. Abuses to our Aboriginal people, the Komagatu Maru, the Irish people that came to this country in the 1800s, to the Jews that came here in the 60s, the Chinese head tax. We have abuses that have been going on in this country, and they have been legitimated by leaders of that time. And we have laws in this country that have come to protect us against these things. And it is unacceptable for us to go back to that. Intelligence experts also tell us that this bill is bad for security. C-51 introduces laws which weaken free speech and your right to express criticisms of economic and government policies. With C-51, we would not be able to stand here, and I thank Eric for raising that point earlier on. We would not be able to stand here and speak out. This is not democracy. With C-51, we would not be able to do what we're doing here. Is this an act of terror? Oh, this is a constitutionally protected right. The right
What happened to democracy?
No freedom of expression.
This is a bill that gives security agencies the mandate to violate virtually every right guaranteed to us. This is a bill that defines threats to security of Canada so loosely that it lumps environmental activism with violent extremism. And I don't think any of you here are violent extremists here.
Shame, Harper!
This is a bill that, according to the Grand Chief of Assembly of First Nation, will label First Nations as terrorists when they stand up for their rights.
My God.
And if you think they're exaggerating, you can just ask Maha Arar about anti-terror legislation.
Oh my God.
Most academics and experts agree that this bill is bad. It would compromise civil liberties and are at odds with the very foundation and nature of Canadian democracy and a free society as espoused by our political philosophers and founders. This bill violates the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and it even violates tenets of the Magna Carta. These are all very important to us.
Anti-constitutional.
Conservatives want us to believe that we have to choose between our freedoms and our safety, but that's a false choice. The women who fought for the right to vote, the peace activists who fought to keep us out of the war in Iraq, the labor activists who fought for a minimum wage for a weekend, for a workplace safety, the First Nations and activists who fight to protect the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the earth our children play on. They were not terrorists. They made our country better. And now it is up to us to defend their rights, to defend our rights. I know there are those who buy into the idea that we can't win this fight. They say nothing is wrong, that they say there is nothing that we can do, that we should just go along and let the Conservatives have their way. Well,
Stop Harper!
I have one message for those cynics. If you don't think it can be done, then get out of the way, because we are not giving up.
No.
There is nothing in the world stronger than people standing together.
Yes.
We've been here before. We can, we must, and we will fight this bill.
Yes. We must.
Come on.
We must!
We are determined, and I am determined.
I'm going to
I am
check and
fighting
see
in
if
your
there's
corner
any
to stop this
security.
bill. That's principled leadership, fighting for our rights.
Yes.
Every generation is called upon to make this country a better place. We will answer that call.